Welcome to the Evangelism Podcast. I'm Daniel King. I'm excited about telling people about Jesus. Today I'm here with a very special guest, Tim Tucker from the Message Trust. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with me.
Thank Daniel. Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So you are with the Message Trust. And right now we are in Zimbabwe,
Yes.
Africa,
Yep.
and it's been so beautiful to be here with the global network of evangelists. We've been doing a gospel festival, and you're from Cape Town. You live down in Cape
That's right,
Town,
beautiful
and
Cape
you
Town.
came up to join in on all the fun and excitement. And I've been exposed to the Message Trust through Ben Jack.
Yes.
And he leads one of your outreaches. But kind of tell us a little bit about the Message Trust, what you guys are all about, and what you do.
Yeah, I mean, the Message has been formed over 30 years ago in the UK by an evangelist, Andy Hawthorne, and primarily seeking to find ways to reach young people with the gospel, particularly urban youth, marginalized urban youth. Our history was the creative arts, a band that became quite famous, the Worldwide Message Tribe, around the world, and just find innovative ways to reach young people with the gospel in language that they can understand. And God's really blessed that over the past, 30 years, and now beginning to be a global movement of organizations seeking to reach young people in difficult circumstances with the gospel. And we do that through a combination of bold proclamation together with action-based mission and ministry.
So what does that look like for Africa? You started in Manchester, which has very unique challenges, and now Africa has a different set of challenges, but yet people are the same everywhere, and young people are looking for purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in South Africa. I'm originally British, came from Manchester, but moved to South Africa in 1998. Fell in love with the continent, the cities, and the people, and just wanting to see how can we develop a platform to engage young people effectively so that they can become Christ-centered transformational leaders. That's really my passion. But it all starts with effective gospel proclamation and attending to people's hearts. And Cape Town in South Africa, where we started the first international hub of the Message in 2014, is an interesting and fascinating city because we came from obviously Manchester, which is very post-Christian, but minority poor. To a context that is still quite religious in terms of South Africa, but a majority poor environment with all kinds of socioeconomic challenges. So we really had to learn to take the DNA and ethos of the Message and contextualize it within Cape Town in a way that will effectively reach the young people in some of the most broken communities there. And that's been the journey we've been on really the last 10 years.
So give me a picture of what that actually looks like on the ground. What are some testimonies of what God has done?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a big emphasis on working with young people caught up in crime and gangs. We actually started a small business called Gangstar Enterprises because the biggest challenge for a young person we reach in prison or coming out of the gang environment is how do they put bread on the table so they don't fall back into that lifestyle. So yes, we proclaim the gospel in prisons and in schools, but then we need to create opportunities to flourish in faith and in life. So Gangstar is it's a play on the word gangster. Obviously gang is the past, star is the future. And we've had numerous, particularly young men, come through that process. We train them to become baristas in coffee, and alongside that disciple them to be able to grow in their faith, to become integrated in church. Young man by the name of Mtiteleli, we met him in prison. We journeyed with him for about 10 years. He is now leading a global movement amongst ex-offenders with another organization, but just seeing the transformation in his life, and God can use him then to invest in others. So we have that kind of rehabilitative and reintegration program with guys out of prison. But then we also do a lot of prevention in schools, in mission, in some of the toughest communities, because we go in, we're able to preach the gospel effectively in schools, we partner with local churches, but then we start up what we call community hubs, which is discipleship processes. Again, we use sports and music and other things to draw in the young people and to be relevant to them. But then we discipleship, doing educational support and really helping them in the whole of life. And again, everything like that is done in partnership with local churches. And it creates this gospel-centered intervention that can redirect lives that were headed in one direction, which would have been destruction and all kinds of antisocial and criminal activities, and directs them into becoming incredible leaders within the kingdom.
And so God's given you tremendous fruit in Cape Town,
Yeah.
but Africa is a big place.
Yeah.
What is on your heart for the future for the rest of Africa?
Yeah, so I mean, 3 years ago, I handed over the leadership to a South African man called Sean. He's doing a phenomenal job. And we just began to lift our eyes and say one of the visions we had was to expand into other African cities. As you'll know, Africa is the youngest continent on the planet, so it's very relevant for a youth ministry to be involved. There's urbanization, there's massive urban challenges amongst young people. So the first thing we want to do is really equip the church to be able to understand how they can better engage young people in urban communities with the gospel, and how they do that in a way that is effectively in discipleship and equipping for life. So we've been now identifying key cities that we can work in through invitation by local churches. We've just launched in Kampala in Uganda. We're in the process of Addis Ababa. We're here in Zimbabwe to see how can we follow up from the great work of GNE in this festival to then have long-term programs and initiatives here. We're looking at French-speaking Africa, but God is really beginning to kind of put wind in the sails of this movement. But the beautiful thing is we're coming off the back of GNE and evangelism that is already been going on across the continent, and we're saying how can we then almost piggyback off that to establish these long-term initiatives that can really raise up these gospel-centered leaders.
Advance is one of the outreaches of the Message Trust, led by my friend Ben Jack. I've been with him in a bunch of different countries, and it's really a unique way to mentor evangelists and help evangelists to build community. And so I've used it in some of my mentoring of some young evangelists, and it's a great curriculum. But it's Advance has put their material in a bunch of different languages, and now it's starting to spread in a lot of different countries.
Over 100 countries around the world now have some form of advanced groups. Tens of thousands of people now being through the training, and it's for us it's been vitally important because we are a ministry that is involved in social, or what I would call gospel-centered transformation. We've got to be able to keep the main thing, and that is that it's only the gospel that changes the heart. And we, in fact, we want to prove that amongst the hardest to reach young people in this continent, a life transformed by the gospel can really become an incredible trophy of grace that then themselves have this ripple effect of impact. So evangelism means that we are keeping the pure gospel. We're focused on proclamation. We're equipping the church, and in some ways that's a gateway for us. It enables us to really build effective relationships with churches, to serve more broadly than just through our kind of citywide hubs, and to be on this ongoing journey of equipping the church here in Africa. And we've got other great partners. We're also doing discipleship training. We've written resources around servant leadership, and it's the combination of equipping the churches here, I think, that will ensure that there's sustained gospel impacts for the long term.
So tell me a little bit about your testimony. How did you come to know Christ? And then how did you get started doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those trophies of grace from a Christian home. My parents, my dad was a first generation believer. He became a Christian at university. My mum was German. They met, and she comes from a believing family. So from a young age, had that experience.
I was saved at a very young age too, and so I tell people, God saved me from drug abuse, from alcohol, from
before we even did it.
Before we even did it, He saved me from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so grateful. But I had as a 6-7-year-old, very conscious presence of Jesus in my life. I remember making a public confession. I think I was 7. Was absolutely sure I needed to be baptized. I wanted to repent of my sins. There was no sense that I'm just a good kid. There was and I had a burden for my unbelieving friends at school. I mean, post-Christian England, none of my friends at school, primary school, went to church. I then went to a Christian high school, and all those kids left the church. during the time of my high school. So that was the environment. It was actually weird to be a Christian in the UK in those days. And so, I mean, when I left school at 16 and did an engineering apprenticeship, and at the age of 17 was wobbling. But I'm the kind of person that I'm either all in or I'm all out. And God began to speak into my heart. There's one time I said that, you know, I became a Christian when I was 7, took communion for the first time. And at the age of 17, in this wobbly place, I remember feeling unpure in church and having to pass on the communion. And a few weeks later, there was a message, and God really convicted me. And he either said, you're all in or you're all out. And by God's grace, at that point, decided I'm all in. I talk about that, my adult commitment, you know, that I was counting the cost at that age, because I knew that, you know, to follow Jesus wasn't a walk in the park, you know, by then. And then, interestingly, I mean, the call to missions also came from a young age. From the age I heard a MAF, Mission Aviation Fellowship missionary, when I was 8 years old, speak at our church. And at that point felt a call to missions and also to Africa. And there's a longer story there, but and again, I had leaving school and doing an engineering apprenticeship. For me, part of that was, I need something to fall back on to support me in the missionary world, you know. So the Lord kind of led me. In the end, he had a completely different pathway for me into missions and coming to South Africa and doing youth work and all that story. But you just see how God weaves these things together. And at the end of the day, all he's looking for is a heart that's willing to be obedient to him. And that's the only qualification we need to serve him, isn't it?
That's awesome. Well, if someone's listening and they want to find out more about the Message Trust, or maybe even support some of the work that you're doing here in Africa, what's a good website where they can find out about you?
Yeah, our landing page is messageglobal.org. And there's a lot of flags on there, so you can see the Uganda or the South African one, Ethiopia about to go on there, as well as some of the other ones around the world, as well, to see what's happening. So messageglobal.org is a great place, great place to start.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Evangelism
Dan, amazing
podcast.
to chat to you. Thanks so much, Dan.
Daniel King is on a mission to save 1 million souls a year, but he can't do it alone. Would you consider sowing a financial seed today? To give, please visit www.kingministries.com.